Well, it says we're live, so we must be. All right, we're live. So, welcome from the crossroads of America to a talk show about guns, politics, or anything else that crosses my mind. We'll answer questions from the audience, either in the chat or by email at ricklifeasIseeit@gmail.com or spottedrick@gmail.com. I have a Patreon page, PayPal, and all that. All the links are down below. So help yourself. Now, everybody must be doing stuff because we got Sabrina in the chat. She's showing up. And Gabrielle's here. That's good. Good to see you. Everybody's starting to show up. That's what I like. Hey, G-Webs, I want to say thank you. I got your package. I appreciate it. As I was saying, I was telling Rob before we went. Oh, you joined me. I mentioned, I think it was Wednesday. I mentioned I got contact lenses or whatever, and sometimes it will stick to my eye because it gets too dry. Well, that happened to me, and trying to get it out, I rubbed my eye raw, and in the process of doing that, I lost the goddamn contact lens. Pisses me off. It's a brand new set I just stuck in too. So,
see, you was worried about it last week, so that's why it happened.
Well, yeah. I mean, I let it get my eye get too dry. I mean, I don't have dry eyes, but I haven't worn contacts for a couple of years, and that will happen when you first put them in because your eyes are irritated because there's something in there, But I enjoy wearing them. But damn, my left eye's all blood. Not my left eye, my right eye's all bloodshot now. So, Grim 90's here, Ghost Tactical's here. So good to see you all. All right, let me introduce my panel while I'm here. I got New York Outcast. How you doing?
Doing well. Thanks for having me. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Stop touching your eye, Rick.
Yeah.
You did it 5 times right now. You just
I know, because it's irritating the shit out of me.
I know. You're just going to make it worse. Go rinse it out if you have to.
Yeah. I'm going to have to turn my camera off before you can't watch me. Then we got the man, the myth, the legend, Patriot in the Dark. How you doing?
And all this time, I thought you were winking at me. How you doing, everybody?
All right. And we got Jason Stewart.
Nice to see you, Rick. Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for the invite.
Yep. And then we got a new panelist. First time here. It's Kevin in New York. How you doing?
All right, Rick. Thanks for the invite. Thank you.
No problem. So, the election, 3 days away. So I think I'm hoping for a landslide. Donald Trump, that is. For they don't. It's over and done with, and we know who's the president. But I got this awful feeling some magical ballots will show up. And it will somebody take it to court and slow everything up. Is what I think is going to happen. But I don't know. I mean, of course, I'm in a fairly, I don't know. Would you call it a red state, Indiana? I would think so. I mean, it has pockets of blue, but it's people here seem confident. So. We'll find out. Anyway, what do you think, New York Outcast?
Well, I kind of hate predictions, but I honestly feel I think it's going to, Trump's going to take it. I don't necessarily think it's going to be a landslide without all the corruption and fraud. I think it might be, but the cities are still. I don't know. From what I hear, there's a lot of Biden signs around the city. So in my area as well. But the outsides, it's just floods of Trump stuff everywhere. So, and a lot of people are fleeing the city. So that's a factor. I don't know if people are really estimating as well. So I personally think Trump's going to take it, or at least should have taken it, from the enthusiasm, from the crowds, from everything that you actually see people doing instead of saying.
Yeah. Ghost Tactical in the chat there says, I don't care about a landslide. I just want to win. Yeah, unfortunately, I think if it's just the win, they're going to challenge it in court. You know, a landslide, it would be hard for them to challenge it in court, but they might. You know, I still think there's some magical ballots will show up somewhere. I really do. But Patriot, what do you think?
First of all, they're gonna fight it anyways. Either way it goes, they're still gonna not be happy. So that's above and beyond. Me, I've most of my family, I would say a good 78% of my family are all one-sided, as far as being, more of a conservative side. But one thing I do suggest, if you even if your family is, a certain way or whatever, talk to them and just give them a call or whatever. Because I actually spoke with somebody in my family, that's just I know how they always vote. And they were like, oh, I don't think it's going to go good. But I think it's because they actually watch the news and are kind of, eating what is being fed to them. So, and the area they're in is mostly conservative. So they don't really see the back and forth except for what's on TV. And so if anybody just watches stuff on the news, I mean, it's just like us. If we're watching anything and somebody on TV, name one person that's on any of the channels, the ABC, whatever it is, that talks about guns and actually has 2 cents to what they're saying. So we don't believe them when they talk about firearms. Why would we believe them talking about anything, without them having some kind of twist on it? So, I don't know. My area, you can't vote early unless it's just absentee. That's just because just my district or whatever. But I plan on doing
I already voted.
Yeah.
I done it the other day. Across the street at the fire station. So. Anyway, what do you think, Jason Stewart? How it's going to go?
I think it'll be a landslide, and I also think they'll challenge it too. I think it'll be just like Hillary. Joe Biden will have a lot of votes, lots of millions of people, but Trump is just going to crush him in the electoral college, and they'll just gripe and complain about that, try to, pull some stuff, challenge stuff, and maybe Trump loses a state or something to Biden after the challenge, but I still think the lead will be so much it doesn't matter.
Yeah. What do you think, Kevin?
Well, as you know, New York is a pretty blue state, but I do see a lot of individuals that are pro-Trump, and I feel strongly that he's going to win. But New York probably go the blue team. And I think either way it goes, there's going to be a lot of unrest in this country, that there will be outbursts in major cities. And I think that's an unfortunate thing, but I think we can expect that whichever way the decision goes.
Yeah, that was going to be my next. That was going to be my next thing about, what's going to happen if Trump. I mean, if Trump wins, if he wins, or if he wins, there's going to be trouble. Is there going to be trouble if Biden wins? With all this unrest. So I don't know.
As I said, I see a lot of pro-Trump people, and if you see the rallies on TV, on YouTube, whatever, Trump has a lot of turnout at his rallies. So I think there's a lot of people that feel strongly for him, and I think there's people, even if it's a small amount of people on the other team, they feel very strongly too. And when they feel strongly, things seem to burn. So that's unfortunate.
Yeah. But I tell you what, though, Guns and Barbecue. We were just talking about our feelings. Who's going to win the election? How are you actually feeling?
I honestly have no idea. If you look at the polling, it's supposed to be close, with Biden possibly winning it. But if you look at the things where, the write-in for Biden and all this crap, they don't get shit for support. So it's really hard telling. I know who I'm hoping for. I'm definitely not hoping for Biden. I would like to see Trump win. While I don't think he is a friend to our gun rights, I definitely think he is better than Biden by tenfold. But overall, who's going to win? I think it's going to be a flip of the coin.
Yeah, okay. All right. Let's see.
Just for the record, I was not talking about my feelings. Squib's not here, so we don't talk about feelings.
No, we don't talk about feelings. No. All right. Moving on. I forgot what the hell I was going to mention now. Damn it. I know I should have come out with it before I asked Guns and Barbecue his opinion on that. But anyway, it might come back to me. And
Jot notes, Rick. Jot notes.
I know I could write notes. I know I should, but I didn't. So, well.
Talk about the upheaval after the election.
Yeah, I mean, do you think that's going to happen, or do you think that's the media?
They've already got plans for that. I'm sure that they're just waiting for a certain thing, because there's groups out there that have that stuff planned because that's what they want. They don't care. I don't think they're actually pushing for Biden anyways. They're just pushing for anything besides Trump and the American way, I think. But that's just how I think.
I kind of agree with that. I kind of see it as programming. If you look anywhere, it's all you really hear. You hear about hotels being bought out, this and that, everything, pre-gaming for this so-called event. So it seems, there's a lot of people that are just, unfortunately, there's a lot of people that just want to get in on their opinion of having some fun and getting some free stuff. So whether they care about the election or not, I think that's going to be an issue in some places.
Kingpin out in the chat says, stop calling it unrest. Stop calling it upheavals. Call it what it is. Democrats rioting. And as G-Web says, the backing for the looters was to turn the election. So after the election, why would they keep that going? You got a good point.
They want free stuff and an excuse to be an ass.
True. It's strange out there. I mean, I said here where I'm out in the middle of nowhere. So this little part of southern Indiana here, is pretty laid back. Nobody's worried about COVID here or anything. Even though it's spiking in some places. But I would imagine it's different up in like Indianapolis. There's a big push up there to for the Democrats. I think they're doing a big push trying to get the Democratic seat in the House of Representatives. So I hope not, but that's I don't know. You think we're going to win the House back? Anybody?
I heard we're actually set to lose 2 seats in the House.
Do what?
I heard we're set to lose 2 seats in the House.
Lose just 2?
Yeah, I heard Republicans are set to lose 2.
Well, all seats. I mean, the House Representatives. What? They're there's a total of 435 because they get elected every 2 years. I I wish somebody was challenging AOC for she wouldn't come back, but I don't see that happening. You know, it's just a strange one. I got a feeling. That. Oh, I know what I was going to say. So anyway, I remember what I was going to say. Let me write this down real quick, so I don't forget. Because I'll bring it up in a second. Now carry on what I was saying. All right. Okay. I got a feeling that we're going to win some of. I got a feeling we're going to win some of the House back, but I don't think we're going to get the majority. I think we'll be a couple of seats shy. So, but I think we're going to keep the Senate. I really do. That's my prediction anyway. So, but what I was going to bring up earlier, but on the same line, is all you guys out there who are in blue states, right? And they say, why bother to vote? Because the Democrats, it's going to go to the Democrats anyway. Your vote will count towards the popular vote. And so the more votes Trump gets, the better case he has, per se, to say, look, I won the popular vote too. You know? And if you don't vote, you're just giving it to the Democrats in that sense, you know, in that sense. And I feel, unfortunately, voting for the third party, I think it's a waste of time too, especially in this cycle. I mean, we've talked about this before. We should have more than a two-party system, but the only way you're going to get a third party or a fourth party is it's got to start at ground level. You know, your local town level, then it goes from town to state, then from state to federal, you know, but you got to have a big push of it to make it work. To try to throw somebody in there on a presidential race ain't never going to happen unless there's a big, you know, third party out there in the United States itself, around the country.
Even if it did, it wouldn't work like everybody's thinking it is. I mean, right now you have somebody in the presidential spot, and he's got people underneath him that are supposedly his side aren't with him. So how do you think, you know, a third party sitting in there, you think the Democrats and the Republicans are going to work with anybody like that? They don't have that party sway and all that stuff. So it's definitely got to start local. But when people are saying, you know, oh, I'm not going to vote, I think you're an asshat if you don't vote.
Well, Squiblo's in the chat.
Oh, good.
And he says, if you don't vote, then you are not, in capital letters, 2A. I agree with you, Squib.
And like in some areas, you can actually go down the day of voting and sign up, you know, and register. So there is no excuse. I mean, I know a lot of people say, oh, I just moved and I sit here, so I can't do it. You check your county, because there's a lot of places you can sign up the same damn day. All you need is your ID.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah. Oh, that was funny. I don't know if I told you guys, when I went into the fire station, there was only one guy in front of me. Got him out of the way. And they come up to me and they needed here in Indiana, you got to have a photo ID. Of course, you're wearing a mask in there. And I hand over my license. He scans it, then looks at it and reads my address to me. He goes, "That where you live?" I said, "Yeah." You know, so if I had moved, I could still say I lived here, what was on my license, because there was no way of proving otherwise. But what was funny, he didn't even look at the picture or me. But then he calls me by my wrong name. He goes, "Michael." I said, "Who in the hell is Michael?" Then he looked. It's an old boy. Then he looked at it again. He sort of held it away from him, sort of like focusing with his eyes. He goes, "Oh, Mitchell." I said, "Yeah." So I thought it was funny myself. But this was the first time in a long time that I done the straight, ticket. Check the box at the top. Normally, I go through every one of them, but this time I said, "Hell with it! I'm going, Republican all the way, all down the line." So I don't know if that was right or wrong, but that's the way I went. So it's done. I got my little badge and my little plastic or platinum paper sticker to say I voted. I got that as I walked out the door. She didn't even hand it to me. They had them just laying on the table and said, "Don't forget to pick up your sticker on the way out." I thought, Jesus Christ,
Yeah, it's probably a COVID thing where they're afraid to touch you or anything like
Yeah,
that. So you notice how they give change back at the store? They're like standing 2 feet
you're
back
right,
and trying to drop it in your hand like the crane game.
Yeah, but you're right though, because like they had 3 booths there. 2 where you stand up, and 1 that was like on a table that for old people could sit down and do it. She wanted to know if I wanted that one. I said, "No, I can stand to do this." But where I was going with this guy, I mean, somebody had just left that booth, and before I was allowed to go in there, they wiped it down with those Lysol disinfectant wipes or whatever.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I'd add that I think everybody should vote. A lot of people say it doesn't count or this or that or it didn't last time, whatever. But it's your voice, so use it.
Yeah. Now
that way, at least later in life to yourself, you did. And as far as the parties, honestly, I'd like to see 4 or 5. I want to see people working for votes. And obviously, I'd also like to see a cap. Like, you can only have $1 million to run your campaign, whatever it is, this or that. So, and let them work for it, because then we're going to get better service. It's almost like a telephone company or Walmart. Once you only have a couple people, they control the game. When you have more options, when you have aftermarket suppliers, prices drop. You get better. You can get better services. So I'd personally like to see it run like that. If they want the job, they better work for it.
Well, I don't think that's ever going to happen unless people get up there and change it.
Probably not, but that's where I wouldn't shame people on votes. Do I think it's going to count if you're going to third party? Probably not. But if maybe we're all on one plateau and the rest, a third of everybody else is going to go third party and actually mean something. So might not this time, might pan out for next time. But again,
Here's a question for you. Do you believe the vote-in ballots are actually counted? Unless they, I mean, they actually count them, or do they only count them if the race is close on the, on the walk-in vote? You know what I'm saying? Say in Florida, for argument's sake, there's only a 30 or 40,000 difference between Trump and Biden with walk-in votes. Would they then count the mail-in, or do they actually count the mail-in votes? Is what I'm asking. I mean, say for argument, Trump got 1.5 million more votes than Biden in Florida. Are they going to count the mail-in ones?
That's how it used to be here in Ohio. They didn't count your mail-in ballots unless it was close, and it would have a chance to affect any outcome. But this year, I'm not so sure. This year might be different with all the COVID and then pushing mail-in balloting so hard. I bet they count them, or I bet they hold things up to wait to count them all.
This year there'll probably be a lot more than ever before too, because a lot of places are pushing, try to do mail-in. So you would think they'd have to kind of try to evaluate it. I mean, at least pretend to. Whether they do or not, I don't know. And normally the percentage of mail-ins are pretty small. I think this year again will be different in the factor that there's going to be a lot more mail-ins. So that percentage can sway a lot more. So I think it's going to be focused on instead of looked over.
Yeah, I don't know if they do. I mean, Midnight Range out there says I think they should count the mail-ins. Normally, no, but now, yeah.
They actually said that there's just under 80 million people have already voted already, which was over half of what was voted the 4 years ago, or whatever, double of the mail-ins from prior early voting.
No, yeah,
because that includes or just walking in too. I believe it's not just mail-ins or anything, but just under 80,000. Or 80 million, not 80,000. Like 76 or something.
Scribb says if you can't show up to vote with ID in the right place, then F you.
The other thing I would say, if you haven't voted and you got a couple days before you show up, look at those guys in your local school districts, especially the school boards. I know most people don't do that, and it's retarded. You should.
No, yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, besides
that's more important. I mean, finding out who's going to run the school that your kid goes to and what they're teaching is a little bit, it's important.
Yeah. Well, I said I went straight ticket, but I think there was 4 issues that you had to vote on. And the way they worded one here about schools, right? They wanted more money for schools to educate the kids from Indiana and all this kind of stuff. But what they didn't tell you, they were going to put the property tax up 19 cents, for every, however they base it on your, the price of your property, every 19 cents on every so many $1,000 or whatever. Taxes were going up. They worded it to make it sound good.
You didn't like that in your area?
No, I mean I don't have. No. I mean I don't really have a dog. I don't have a bone in this fight. I got no kids in school.
I think the New York school system is a perfect example. You can throw all the money you want. Money's not going to solve all your problems. You got to kind of do your job, and it's the people and the culture. So I'm sure your area is a bit different, but some of these urban areas, it's horrible. So I kind of feel for some of these teachers. Their hands are tied. They're lucky to make it through the day in some cases.
Yeah,
I mean, it's not. Not as bad as like the movies and some things like that, but they're definitely walking on glass. So
yeah,
not stating justifies some of their downfalls or things like that. In other cases, I wish they'd do more, but thanks to the unions, they'll tell you one thing, but they're going to vote or say another publicly.
Yeah, I have noticed though there's a few people, more than I realized, don't think schools should be federally funded.
I don't.
And I don't agree with that. A good example is your urban schools. I mean, if the community is meant to pay for the school in their area, how, say for argument's sake, in the what's the word, the low rent district or whatever in New York City, right? Are they going to get the tax money out of those people to pay for that school in that area? Hell no. They don't have it. So they got to get money from somewhere. So that's what I'm saying. That's why I don't agree with don't fund the schools,
I'd like to see the government out of the school system personally.
So, I mean, but how would you do the schools in the hard put areas where there's lots of unemployment and all that, and one parent families, and basically I'm trying to be polite, but set for like the slums. How are you going to get that school operating if you have no federal funds?
I'm probably not the guy to come up with the plan, but I would state, you know, in some cases, and it sounds horrible, but you know, people got to learn a lesson. So, you know, don't. Yeah, I don't know.
See, it's a tough one, isn't it?
Well, no, I just don't want to come off sounding bad, but you know, it's some people don't learn. Some people are there because that's all they care. You know, they don't know better to do better in a sense. And in cases like that, that's just bringing down the system anyway. So
Yeah,
I know that sounds bad, but you know what I mean.
No, I understand where you're coming
You
from.
got to work on self improvement, and if you're happy just kicking around, being on welfare, popping out a crap load of kids, and you know, running around the block your whole life, then I don't really care personally. So that may sound insensitive. I'm sure there's good people out there that are caught in a bad spot, but there's plenty of options to get yourself in a better spot. You don't have to be like everybody else.
Yeah, I mean, but I mean, kids, if they only do what their parents do, basically.
Yeah, parents should put more focus on their education instead of sleeping until noon and getting high and going down and get their check. So free check usually. So in some cases,
if a child sees that in and out, you know, doing that, that's what they're going to do. They think that's normal. You know, I mean, I'm not. I mean,
that has nothing to do
out
with
of it,
school.
but I made my amends when I was back in my drinking days, or my kid was small. This is what I'm saying. This is how it affects kids, and you don't realize it. My kid would want to do something. I was more interested in drinking. I said that because I did have a problem, and he would say something, and I'll say, "We'll do it later." You know, we'll do it later. We'll always do it later, right? And then one time, this was towards the end of my drinking days, and maybe it was one of the things that made me hit my bottom or whatever. One day I said to him, "Yeah, we'll do it later." He goes, "Oh, that means that means no. Never, later means no." And that's how he thought, that's what later meant to him. If anybody told him later, it meant no. So what I'm saying is, you got to be careful. When going with these low-income families, the kids are only going to do what their parents do. You know, it's hard for them to break out. And I mean, I'm not saying it's the school's job.
We need better parents, right?
That they should have they somehow, maybe I'm sounding liberal Democrat here, but I think they should have a chance to be able to, a kid should be able to have a chance to better himself, to be better than his parents.
Yeah, well, even if the government was out of it, we're the number one donating nation across the world in a sense. So I'm sure Americans would voluntarily pitch in something here or there to help people to fill things out in some cases, but there wouldn't necessarily be government control over it. So, and that could be different. I'm not a rich guy in a sense. My area is not a great area. A lot of people would rather not live where I live. Honestly, I'm here because the rent's cheap at this point, but that's another story. But it's cheap because it's not in the best place, probably. So, but I didn't like the schools. I had nothing but issues with the schools. Everything was a problem almost. They basically want to control your kid and household, and it's just not going to happen. So we made a sacrifice, a hardship to ourselves on income, and basically pulled kids out of school to homeschool. So that means we had to purchase books, we had to pay for tests, we had to fill out a bunch of paperwork, and then come up with an actual class and take the time to do that, because we would rather do that than basically pay for our kids to go downhill in life. And it's a sacrifice. You got to alter things, but it's your job as a parent. If you know better, take the time to do better. And just so it's clear, I'm not the teacher. If anybody's noticed my spelling, for God's sake, all my kids are probably book smarter than me already. So,
all right. Anybody else got anything to say on this? Hey, Clover's joined us. How you doing?
We're private school people. Sorry, Clover.
Sorry, I'm late.
That's all right. Have you
can
heard
pay
any-
for a new car and all this other crap? You can pay for a better education for your kids.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know. We got way off topic there, but you know.
I just want to throw in there. We have our school board, right? There's 3 positions. We have 9 people running for that spot. Out of 9 people, there's probably 4 that are okay, but there's 2 that are great. So do your homework and actually look at the stuff and stop pushing it off to somebody else and their parents. And that's just my point.
Okay, yeah. Squiblo, living in a safe neighborhood might be more important than the quality of the public school. You might be talking to somebody else here. Squiblo says homeschooling is not for everyone. You know, I mean,
That's very true, and I give people that. Everybody hates homeschooling. So for some reason, they think a kid's locked in a house and you're getting taught some weird stuff all day. But that's, there's ways to go about this, and there's different plans, there's groups, there's all types of stuff. My kids had more friends than any other kid. Like, the house was the house, probably because of stability. It seemed like the kids liked knowing things were going to be okay. But needless to say, yes, it's not for everybody, but therefore, again, don't be cheap, man. Cough up some cash, pay for a private school. These private schools, a lot of them with the religion, they don't care if you're not religious or into their thing. They just want the money. But all those kids graduate. Just look at the statistics. It's a total different ball game. The private school, the home school, those are the bosses, and the public school usually are the helpers. I'm just look at the numbers, man.
Yeah, the only problem I ever had with homeschool was all the interactions I had with kids that were homeschooled when I was in school. They were very awkward, but like you were saying, Rob, it depends on how you go about it. If you're going to keep your kids shut in and sheltered from the world and they don't socialize, then they're going to be those awkward kids if they end up having to go to public school. But if you allow them to socialize and interact with other kids and other people, there's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah, I don't know. And what you were saying there, I mean, I don't know about homeschooling. People think you're being shut in, taught weird things. They're being taught weird things in public schools. They're not being taught, are they? They're being indoctrinated into
in some cases with homeschool, it's the same way. They have some people that, I forgot what they called it, but it's like free roam learning. You do nothing but normal stuff. You help with shopping and everything else. It's like the basics that you should be teaching your kid anyway. That's what they call school. In my opinion, I don't approve to that. I think you should have a curriculum. You should be trying to stay ahead of the game, because you can spend half the time and almost get twice as much done when you're skipping all the BS in class. It's no joke. Ask anybody. So you can easily double up and be ahead with like nothing and still have a short day.
Oh yeah, I mean, because if you got a classroom with 30 kids in it, it's going to take a while to teach them. But if it was only your kids, you can do it half the time.
Plus, you got the cell phone, the pressures, reactions, everything else, switching classes, going to the lockers, lunchtime. You have all this other stuff. The pre-period classes. Basically, there's a lot of time to get burned up. My daughter would complain that she had to sit around because 2 kids were screwing around. They didn't learn anything all day. Like she used to complain about it, basically, that it's just a waste of time. So, but everybody's different. So in some cases, it's an advantage, but not an advantage, but in some cases it could be a blessing if you're in a good school district. If things aren't crazy, work with them. But if it gets too bad, you don't have to play the game. It's on you. It's your responsibility to do more for your kids.
The homeschool guys that I know, they actually have a network for the PE, the sports, the going to parks, museums, all that stuff. So they actually have a network that they set up, and they I don't know if they carpool or what it is, but they go around, pick up the kids, and like once a week they'll go to, some museum or whatever. I don't know right now, obviously, but there's actually a network, and they do all the physical. They have dances, all sorts of stuff. So it's not just, like you're locked in with a candle sitting at the table for some of them, but you have to look for it. You're not just gonna, sign up for something and then just think somebody else is gonna drop it in your lap. You got to take that initiative. But there's a lot of farm people that I know that have their kids are homeschooled, but they're always going to travel sports, all those travel leagues, all that stuff. So it's out there if you're willing to do it.
Yeah. I don't know. As I said, when it comes to schools, I don't have I said I don't have a bone in the fight anymore. Oh, my kids are, unless I'm thinking about my grandkids going to schools, but I've done my part with my kids, so. But but what I'm afraid of, though. I forgot what I was going to say there.
I think we got a responsibility as a society to push education. I mean, education's.
Oh yeah, I mean, as a country,
that's education is power. If you know, and you don't need, if you know, you don't have to depend. Basically, you can figure out a way or something. Well, I don't know. I'm probably putting it wrong, but I think you know what I mean.
Get the government out of it. Just about like everything, right? And, to Squib's note about the cost and some of the other things, get the government out of it. And then why not give if we're going to spend $12,000 to $15,000 a year, talking about tax dollars, in the public school system anyway, then why not give $12,000 to $15,000 in tax credit or whatever every year? That could help offset some of the cost of going wherever you want to go. If you want to go to public school, that's fine. But then if you choose to send your kid to some other kind of school or homeschool or whatever, then you can file for tax credit for that amount to offset that cost. And then on top of that, reform of, if you're a teacher out there listening, you may hate me for this. And if you do, then maybe you need to take a good hard look at yourself. But I've said this over and over and over that our quality of teachers is crap. I'm not pointing the finger at a specific teacher that may be listening to this. And I don't mean, so I certainly don't mean to offend anybody over this, but let's be honest. Just like we have law enforcement officers that are crap and doctors that are crap, we got teachers that are crap. And then we got teachers unions on top of that make it difficult to get rid of teachers that aren't doing their job. So we've got the state, we've got the government involved, which is crappy. And then the government mandates that you have to take these tests, no child left behind, whatever the crap it might be. And then you've got teachers that are not specific teachers for their field. They're just, I'm just going to go get enough college or education to get whatever I need to be able to go be a teacher. And this year I may teach science, and next year I may teach math. Screw that. Teachers need to be educated in whatever they're teaching. So, and if you've got a situation, and this rolls into, let's roll that into private school and homeschool too. I'm not going to be inconsistent with this. So, if you're talking about homeschool, that particular curriculum, and there are certified curriculums for whatever state you might be in, that curriculum needs to be written, have online lectures, whatever, by, again, not some general person that's just got a general teaching diploma that doesn't even know the subject. They need to be done by people that are experts in their field and know that subject. And then the same goes, a lot of private schools, at least around here, private schools are very fluid. Somebody had mentioned the religious private schools and stuff like that. The private school, one of the private schools, I think it's called Christ the Redeemer or something, but it's basically a big homeschool is how it operates. It's not a private school. There's a lot of different families and they take everybody in, but they utilize homeschooling curriculum in that private school. So it runs the gamut from that or with charter schools or whatever. But regardless, get the government out of it. If we want to somehow what is it? If we want to somehow subsidize with tax dollars, we can look at that again with tax breaks or stuff like that. And then the third key to that component is good teachers. Period.
Yeah, I see where you're coming. But I mean, originally what I was saying was schools that are in low income areas need funding from somebody because they're not going to the community ain't going to generate the funds to run a school. You know, so you deprive certain kids of an education.
Well, I wonder,
can't raise money.
I wonder when it comes to the schools in low income areas, and don't get me wrong, I'm a super rural person. And so, you know, when you're talking about a low income area, rural areas apply to that. Now, if you're talking about urban areas, I'll be the first to admit I've got zero experience in an urban environment, in the hood, in the ghetto, whatever you want to call it. Other than having friends, talking with them and their insights, I've got no firsthand knowledge of all that. But I got to figure that low income sections of the country are similar in a lot of ways. So I got to figure that very rural areas, which it is around here, the average income around here in this county is freaking ridiculous. People say, oh, I can't afford this or I can't afford to do that. And I'm thinking, you know, my God, but you make 5 times what, you know, the average person in this area of the country makes. Average income here is like $12 or $15,000 a year. It's crazy. So I live in a low income area, but we've got good schools. Pretty decent schools. So the income part of it is not necessarily the issue. So when we look at some other low income, and maybe we factor in the urban environment to that as well, is the difference the money, or is it also maybe the quality of teachers, maybe where the money coming from, the federal government, the state government, whatever it might be, where that is spent, it goes back into the school board. When I jumped in, y'all were talking about school board, it goes back into the school board and administrators and that being handled correctly. And ultimately, what is the quality of parents? Maybe the rural areas that are poor and economically challenged just have better parents than those in a more urban setting. Maybe that is a factor too, and the parents care more. They actually sit down and help their kids get their homework, make sure they get to school on time, and all of this other stuff. So it's complex. When it's easy to say, well, it's an economic thing, or it's urban, or it's rural, or it's whatever, but when you start looking at the minutia in it, it gets to be really complex, to where one specific area, it may be a totally different problem with education than another one.
Can I just add real quick, because you mentioned the schools in the area are good. I've seen this happen with a few people, especially in my area, where they'll say, "Oh, we just moved over to here because, you know, the schools are good and this and that," and they have no idea. Like, the ratings claim they're good, but they're not good. Like, good is passable. Good's not good. You know what I mean? In my opinion, like,
I'm speaking.
Good is working at McDonald's. Good's
I'm
not
speaking from
the
a
boss
perspective.
or anything.
Yeah, but I'm speaking from a perspective. First of all, a parent that had 3 kids that went through the system. Don't get me wrong.
Okay.
Oh,
Well, as long as you know, I trust that more than some stars on a website.
So I don't like the public school system. I think that's pretty clear. I think the government needs to be out of it. I think it needs a complete revamp. I don't like I've had issues with teachers. I've had issues with the school districts here. I've had all kinds of issues. When I say good, I'm speaking that it does what, for the most part, the schools around here do what were intended to do, which is to educate children and get them onto higher learning, trade school, get them ready for the workforce, whatever it might be. And it's not just with the schools my kids went to, but being in 4-H and dealing with hundreds of kids a year, there's also an element where you have to work with certain schools and stuff like that. So in this county, I'm talking one county out of Texas, out of the entire United States, right? For the most part, and we're a really, really rural area, for the most part, our public school systems here, the public school districts are fairly decent.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I don't know where I was trying to say the education in this country needs to change.
Yeah.
Because
Can I throw something in there, Rick?
in a world, I mean, we're not top of the for education for being the number one country in the world per se. Our education system is way down there.
27th or so, probably.
Yeah,
It's down in the 20s. Yeah.
yeah. So we need to be at the top. They go on page.
Talking about the parent portion of that is a huge part of it, and we've allowed our schools to get worse and worse and worse and worse. One thing that you guys might think about, you might not like it. We throw out the parochial schools. If you go to that church, they actually give you discounts to go there. So, and that and whatever else people do that don't take care of their kids or whatever, that could also help there. Even if you're an aunt and you got, your sister's kids, whatever, and you're taking care of them, single parents, having that other form of community where it isn't the government handing you everything, where you can actually go and you can talk to people that, you don't have to, worry about, they're just looking at the time clock because they're going to punch the time. They're actually, more involved. The community is where all this stuff's got to go. I don't care if you have the best teachers ever. If you're in a bad place, it's going to stay in a bad place, especially if you don't have that reinforcement at home, or that, hey, I'm doing my best. The kid's smart. She's got to get to X, Y, Z, and you don't have that community to rely on, where you're not looking at, waiting for the mailman for some check, because that doesn't help. That's just cash to buy whatever, Pop-Tarts.
Well, and for the education ranking, I think it's important that, because, man, you could get online, and I know there's probably some people when you put that question out about where does the United States rank, and some people probably Googled, and the waters are muddied so bad on that, because some rank it by how many kids going to college, some rank it by specific subjects, so it's a real muddy situation. And I freaking had a point about that, and I ended up forgetting it. Oh, I remember what it was. When you say that we've got to do better at education, the problem is we say that a lot of times, and a lot of people say that, and I think the government and our representatives in government think that as well. But at the same time, a couple of things. They're thinking that throwing money at the problem is going to fix it, and it's not. It has absolutely nothing to do with the money that the government is spending on education. I think they've proven that for decades now. And the other thing, when we look at other countries, and I'm just going to use for example, I haven't Googled this. I don't know that these are accurate stats, but let's just say that Japan is number one for math. And Canada is number one for science, right? The other thing we got to look at is when we're comparing the United States to other countries in the form of education, we've also got to look at the freedom factor that we enjoy in this country. Because there's a lot of people that like to say America's horrible, it's horrible, it's horrible. And I agree. There's some things that are horrible, and there's some freedoms that we have been stripped of that we certainly need back and everything else. But by and large and on the whole, we're the freest country on the planet. And so I think that freedom plays into our education might maybe not be up to par with some of the other countries. I mean, when they could throw you into a gulag because your kids didn't go to school, for example, maybe like in China or Russia or Japan or wherever it might be, they can literally lock you up, throw away the key, execute you, do whatever they want. I mean, it's that freaking harsh. It's not just some kind of civil penalty or something. Then, or maybe even do that if your kids fail a test, for goodness sake, because there are some countries that are that way. Where does the freedom factor play in? Well, how much liberty are you willing to give up to be the number one country in the world when it comes to education? And that's a whole different question. I don't know that I'm willing to give up that much, to be honest with you.
Good point. Good point. Yeah. Anyway, anything else on education, or should we move on to another subject? Well, let's move on to another subject. Then my other subject in the in my title is Biden really going to take our guns? You know, I mean, according to his I've gone to the web page, and if you read his, his agenda for gun control, it's scary. It really is scary. But from what's written down and what they're actually saying, do you think they're going to be able to pull it off? Because, I mean, even if he wins, the only way they could get it is they got to win all three, the House, the Senate, and the presidency.
Right.
It's the only way they can do it. And I think even if he's in and we keep the Senate or whatever, anything, even if he does an executive order, I think is going to be challenged in court. Or even some of these other organizations will challenge it in court, when it comes to the Second Amendment.
Well, think about this. Back in 2013, if we're all asked to sit down and write the biggest doomsday scenario for our gun rights to have happen, none of us would have thought of anything remotely like Sandy Hook. And they still didn't get anything through. So even after a huge tragedy like that, where a lot of emotion was there and it could have been easily used to sway people, which they were doing, they didn't get anything through like they wanted, except for executive orders. And a lot of those didn't happen, if I recall. Do they really have the power that they are claiming, or are they just trying to rile up their base?
Well, I'm trying to think when Sandy Hook happened. What was that? 2012. Didn't the Republicans hold the Senate then? Because they either had the House or the Senate, and that's what was stopping any gun control from going through back then.
I think they had the
I
Senate.
don't think
The House flipped.
Yeah.
The House flipped. Obama's midterm for Obama. The House flipped, or no, the House flipped back. So it went back. So yeah, we had the I got to get out of that mindset. I ain't no freaking Republican. The Republicans in 2012 had the House and the Senate, if I'm not mistaken. Obama's first term. That's why he was able to get Obamacare all done. That was his focus. That's part of why people forget that. That's part of why we talk about having less gun control under Obama than we did Trump so far. And part of that was Trump really didn't have a legacy he was trying to build. And Obama was wanting his name on a major piece of legislation, which ended up being Obamacare, and was pushing that so hard they really weren't focused on anything else, even during the Sandy Hook thing. But I think the Republicans had already taken back by the time Sandy Hook happened, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
I may have that backwards, but I think Obama had Democrats for the first term, and then he had Republicans for the second term.
Yeah.
But to go down the rabbit hole of the Biden thing, the approach they're going to take, and I get really tired of the talking heads and the YouTubers and everybody else hollering about, they're going to confiscate your guns, they're going to confiscate this, they're going to take them all away, they're going to take up all your guns, and speaking that way, because while that may be an ultimate end game and it may eventually lead there, we need to be talking about the little things along the way that can prevent that from ever coming to happen, because that's a monumental task. I mean, going to door, taking up guns and doing all of this is a monumental task. The dangerous part and we don't think about this a lot, but we think about the government's infringement on the individual, on the citizen. Oh, they're going to take away my guns. Oh, they're going to make me go through a background check. Oh, they're going to potentially subject me to a red flag law, right? And we worry about this. But at what point do we put that aside for a second and we look at the dangers that the government can have on the industry, which enables us to participate in the right we have, which is guaranteed by the Second Amendment? Because without an industry that creates and sells firearms and products and ammunitions and all this other stuff, we're screwed. We don't have anything that we can do. We can't practice it anyway, right? So what's scary with Biden and with a lot of these others is when they start talking about taxes and heavy regulations on the industry as a whole, and they start talking about opening up these industries to lawsuits. And make no mistake, we all know how weaselly lawyers are, especially those lawyers that are ambulance chasers. And so think of the snowball effect when, and this is a good conversation to have maybe with people that are on the fence and not necessarily gun owners or not necessarily pro Second Amendment, but think about when you open up that Pandora's box. That is, okay, you can sue a gun manufacturer for the gun they created and sold to a distributor, which was sold to a dealer, which was sold to a private individual, which was then sold to another private individual and another one that was then stolen and used in a crime. Now the family of the victim of that crime, think about how far removed at that point with what I just said the manufacturer is from the person who used it or the person who's filing the lawsuit. But that the victims of that, the families, the victim's family can then sue that firearm manufacturer. How crazy is that? And then apply that to anything else, from a car manufacturer to the person who makes your dish soap that your child may get a hold of, to anything, right? Anything that's out there that is for sale. Think about the ramifications of that, because you open that door and it's not going to be, oh, well, this is just for the fire because that's a dangerous item, blah, blah, blah. They're going to have their explanations for it. But in a court of law, it ain't going to matter. That manufacturer made an item that subsequently was used to harm somebody else in some way, shape, form, or fashion. That's the basic premise when it comes to law and a court case and a legal battle. That's the premise that lawyers, especially ambulance chasing lawyers, are going to run with. So think about all the dollars that are going to be tied up and the mockery and the mess that's going to be made of the United States civil court system should something like that go into effect. Like I said, above and beyond destroying the firearm industry, think of the ramifications and all the chaos that's going to come from everything else. It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, right now, that's one of the things that came out of Sandy Hook. You know, I mean, that's why I think Remington went sold up, for they don't have to pay the costs of that case. You know, sitting in court.
That may have been part of it, and part of the strategy. It's hard to sit in the seat of the CEOs and the CFOs and figure all that out. But Remington had been sold off, that going downhill and everything else for many, many years. So Remington was not a healthy company to start with.
Yeah.
There is something interesting there, though, with what Clovertack's mentioning, because, you know, like with the Remington lawsuit, they're going after how it was advertised. But I heard recently that there was a bill introduced in the House that would make it where firearms and anything, well, really anything with the firearms industry, whether it's manufacturers, ammunition manufacturers, etc., won't be able to advertise. Which, if this Remington thing were to go through and actually cost them money, which, I mean, you know, they're going through the bankruptcy now and all that, but that bill could actually be a silver lining. Well, yes, they technically can't advertise. Well, you can't sue them for advertising in a certain way if they can't advertise then.
May be the case if that works out, but that'll suck, because I personally think, you know, they should be able to advertise. Or Anybody should. I get upset because
Oh,
I
I
never
do
see
too.
anything about guns on TV. Like even with the Olympics half the time. Not that I'm completely into it, but dang, you see those people on the skis. That stuff's crazy. That's talent. But
I think,
Yep.
I think, gun commercials on TV.
yeah, I don't see much at all. Where anything I see for guns is in a magazine or something like that.
Oh, yeah,
I've never seen a Smith and Wesson commercial come across my TV or anything like that.
The only ones I see are Henry. You know,
People are going to do stupid things. So
Well,
if they were to do that, it's a Pandora's box. I mean,
There's
we could easily say what companies do they own or they have money in, and let's go use their product and sue them. So tit for tat, and now we're what? Nobody can sell anything. I mean, it's a dumb idea from the get go.
There's a big difference between the government says that you can't advertise and different advertising agencies, sectors, or platforms or whatever saying you can't, a private company saying you can't advertise on my TV station, radio station, in my magazine, whatever. Big difference when the government says you can't advertise at all and, a private business making a decision whether or not they advertise. We gotta make sure we separate those two.
Wasn't that back in the 80s where you could not see a liquor, hard liquor, you couldn't advertise on TV? That was a government thing, wasn't it? Where they could not do, the Jack Daniels. I don't know if it's lifted yet, but I know when I was a kid, you didn't see anything that was hard liquor besides in magazines. And it was not allowed on the FCC. They couldn't talk it on the radio either.
They did that with cigarette ads at gas stations as well.
But the big thing that I think you're missing on his page, I mean, I do understand the whole, the attacks to the manufacturers, but the other thing where they said ban all online sales, that's firearms, ammunition, and parts that are not regulated. Is that going to kill Brownells? Is that going to kill Midway USA?
Yep.
These places that's all they do. Yep. What you're going to, because I know where I live, there's nowhere I'm going to drive around and find a thingamabob. There might be two places local, maybe that's like within a couple hours, but all that stuff that has nothing to do with I don't know. Because once they do that, they can connect anything, just like you said with the banning of. So
that's a good point, and I want to draw a parallel, Patriot, to that. Okay, so there may be people that say, "Oh well, even though they do what they do with firearms and they shut the companies down and you can't hardly buy firearms anymore, I've still got plenty of firearms." Well, that's great, but things wear. It's a mechanical device. It's no different than your car. And think about one of the ramifications of Cash for Clunkers. Cash for, I can't even hardly say that. Screw you, Obama, for making a bill like that. So when they did Cash for Clunkers, the amount of cars sitting in wrecking yards and parts yards and stuff were crushed because they got this exorbitant amount for crushing them, right? It was to stimulate and get people to go buy newer model cars. The people that had old cars, they couldn't hardly find parts anymore. Because why? Because those wrecking yards crushed out all of their cars to get some of the Cash for Clunkers money rather than selling off the parts so that those people that had older cars could continue to, and whether they were classics or vintage or whatever it might be, could continue to love and enjoy and use and drive those, right? So it drove up the price of old car parts. And you're going to have the same thing happen if this goes into play. Patriot's absolutely right. You're going to have Brownells that's out there, and when there's no industry and people, well, we need some parts, the next thing they're going to play is they're going to go after those that are manufacturing parts themselves. Brownell, obviously, they're a retailer, a distributor, so they're not some stuff they make, but not all of it. Obviously, not everything in their catalog. So a large percentage of that eventually is going to be done away with too. And yeah, okay, you may have 500, 600, 1,000 guns, but if you can't get, well, let's take ammo aside and put that on a shelf for a second, because that's something that they're going to go after directly with a lot of these lawsuits. But Just think about the parts to keep those things operational, the springs and the other things. It's going to come to a point, don't matter how many firearms you got, you ain't going to have access to parts to keep them running. So in a de facto way, by going after the industry, which people love to throw under the bus all the time, whether no matter what G-Web's out there is talking about SHOT Show, and have a lot of people say, screw SHOT Show, I don't go to SHOT Show anyway, they don't have anything new, they blah, 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 I don't care about supporting the industries, basically what they're saying. So people already have that attitude of screw the industry. So you take the attitude to screw the industry, and you take the government going after the industry, and then it doesn't take long if you follow that down the rabbit hole to see where we end up. We end up with having a bunch of guns that we, A, don't have ammunition to use through them, or B, don't have access to the parts to keep them running to use them anyway.
That is going down a rabbit hole, but I get the gist of where you're coming from. You know, you're right.
So if this happens, make sure your kids go to trade school so they can actually make those parts. You know, just saying, back to that education.
Yeah, but I mean, but if they're
full circle,
you'd be allowed to make the parts.
Well, I mean, what they don't know, you know what I mean? I mean, if I make parts all the time, right? I've got spring steel, I've got stuff here. I make springs and things all the time. How are they going to know, or how are they going to be able to tell the difference if I build a spring? I mean, they're not. If I go down to the hardware store and get XYZ and I build some kind of part, odds are they're never going to know from that anyway. That's completely non-enforceable, but there's a definite learning curve in being able to do things like that. There's people that take their firearms in just to get them cleaned because they're not comfortable, you know, using some solvent and a brush and a ramrod, basically, or a cleaning rod.
Rick, do you remember me bringing that up as far as, you know, losing all guns within, you know, one generation or two generations?
Yeah.
I brought it up where, you know, if they just nickel and dime, you know, making things where you can't get them, that, you know, okay, it's just like everybody, you know, says throw them in the lake, that kind of stupid whatever. That just means you're hiding them, you're burying them, and they're out of sight. And then with your kids going to school, you know, how many hours of the day learning that, you know, anybody that has a firearm is a bad guy. You know, either you're a criminal in their eyes or you're, you know, whatever, a patriot if you teach them right. But, you know, then you die. It's just like, you know, automatic weapons, you know, bring homes. You know, if it's sitting in grandma's closet and then grandpa dies and, you know, the kids are, you know, college kids that don't know any different, you know, and they just turn them in or throw them out, you know, well, yeah, dad was a criminal, so let's get rid of these. Within a generation, you could have everything gone just because people are whatever. They're looking at themselves and they don't see that big picture. It doesn't take very long to get rid of everything. Look at England. Now, within 100 years, they don't have anything over there.
Yeah, you're right.
Butter knife. No, and that's all it was. It was just a little bit here. It made it harder. You had to have, you know, some magistrate sign this that says it was okay for you to have it. Then they limited the calibers and they said, okay, well, you can't have this, or you got to store it this way. And within 100 years, they're done. They don't have anything besides small bore. And then if you make a silly post on social media, they'll ban you for life. You know, the one shotgun guy, he can't even do, you know, what his living is because, you know, something he said online.
Absolutely no murders though. They just solved all murders by doing it.
I mean, the thing is, England still
all that brown sauce.
Like we say over here, the criminals still have guns in England. There is still gun crime.
Yeah, sure there is.
You know, and there's actually more because in my day, very rare police had guns. More police in England have guns than they let you know.
Well, from a criminal's perspective, if you live in a country and you break the law on a daily basis, right? You're straight up a criminal. So they ban guns in that country. So the law-abiding citizens can't have them, and they're going to abide by the law, and they're going to give them up. So as a criminal, it's a no-brainer. You don't give a crap about those laws. What's going to be your weapon of choice? It's going to be a firearm. Duh. because nobody else has one. And so I don't have to worry about, I've got the, what is the term? The most effective weapon, maybe, or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't see, I mean, and that's going to happen here eventually. That's what I'm afraid of.
Even if you just poof magically removed firearms from the planet, people are still going to kill each other. I mean, this has been going on forever. So really, if there was no guns, would they rather there's more bombs? Would they rather there's more poisons? And innocent people are still going to die. There's going to be victims. There's going to be casualties.
I mean,
I don't mean to get all religious here or anything, but if you look back in the Bible, didn't Cain kill Abel with a rock?
Basically.
Yeah.
Well, technically, they still stone people to death to this day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I wasn't trying to get all religious or bring religion into it. Just kind of trying to support that idea of, hey, no matter what, if people want to do it, they're going to do it.
Yeah, yeah.
But it has nothing to do with firearms anyway.
No.
None of this stuff.
Nope.
But I mean, so back to my original question. So if Biden does win, do you think he's going to be able to pull it off, all this gun control?
Hinges on the Senate.
Exactly. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
He's going to have all three to make it work.
Maybe.
I don't think so.
Court.
Even if he does, the people aren't going to do it. You can make a law, but if you make a law, nobody's going to follow. What's it really do?
Okay. Well, you don't need the state's consent to add a state, I don't think.
So
it used to be they could add, the Washington D.C. state, and Puerto Rico, so that they have their extra people. So there's a lot of ways they can change it.
So we've never seen, and I know that maybe talking to some young bucks out there or new guys into firearms and into 2A that, they're aware of history, but they don't really look at it or really haven't read a lot of stuff about culture at the time and things of that nature. So would I hear, well, they could do whatever, but we won't comply? First of all, who's we? Because if you look at 1934 in the NFA, that was a super unusual, crazy, far overreaching infringement. It was insane. Even worse than that, you go to Gun Control Act of 1968, and oh my God, that was forced crazy legislation upon everybody, from exactly like we're talking about here, from the manufacturers all the way down to the consumer and everywhere in between, including dealers, distributors, importers, parts manufacturers. Look up 922, and everything in between. It was super freaking draconian, crazy, massive gun legislation, more than we've ever even discussed in the last several years with the red flag laws or even an assault weapons ban. We're talking about super draconian, and everybody has just rolled over and complied with all of that up until now. So,
in some cases, Clover, I'll give you that. In some cases, and yes, in general, a lot of people will. A lot of people do what they're told. And then there's a lot of people that don't give a damn, and they're going to do what they feel is right between them and God. So
yeah, there's going to be a few.
I
agree with you. I agree with you.
I'm not going to get too far into that living in New York, but
yeah,
everybody has a line.
Well, you've got the 3%ers, right, that they always talk about, or this, that, and the other. And there is a small percentage, but that's the problem is if we allow it and we don't try to stand up and put our foot down and stop it in its tracks, then eventually, especially when you start getting into multiple generations, as Rick has pointed out earlier, people just accept it more and more and more and more. And the next thing you know, it's kind of like, again, 1968 or 1944, where it's like, well, I don't like this, but this is where we're at. We've had it for so long now.
Do you mean like where kids can't wear Star Wars T-shirts to school? Where they can't wear it because there's a really cool blaster on there? Yeah. Well, it kind of goes back to the education.
When it comes up to the AR-15
you want to hide everything,
magazines,
it's out of sight, out of mind.
I think that affects the whole gun community. Not everybody has an AR-15 or magazines, but I mean, when you're looking at stuff like that in parts, that's going to piss off people on both sides. So I don't really think this would fly personally, but it's too general. If it just went after AR-15s, AKs, and it'd probably pass. And the way things are, hopefully not. But if it's covering all parts and in general, there's no way. I just don't think the big game hunters, all this type of stuff, things like that, they're not going to do it. And they got more money than we do, so they're going to stand up, I think.
These government officials aren't stupid. I mean, when it comes to common sense and everything else, yeah, they're stupid. But when it comes down to shady government work, they're experts at it. Mm-hmm. And say they ban the AR-15. They're not going to waste the time, effort, life, and resources to send every cop out day one and raid every house that's not going to happen. What they'll do, first thing that'll happen is manufacturers will stop making them. So right there, the well is dry. Can't take them to the range anymore because if you want to let somebody with an AR-15 on your range, then we're going to pull your license and you're not going to have a range anymore. So your business is closed. You've got to determine whether it's AR-15s or whether it's big pens. Are you going to die alone on that hill? Because you're going to be alone. That's the harsh. People got this idea of this civil war, and if they ban guns, the mobs are going to rush to the streets to the Capitol building. There'll probably be a couple of people that'll do that, and the local police department will kill most of them and arrest the rest. What'll happen is they'll knock on your door at 4 a.m, and you'll be standing there in your pajamas all alone. There's this whole idea that there's going to be this giant gun community come together and build this army like Voltron, and we're going to move forward and take all of our rights back. Isn't what's going to happen. Now, maybe down the road, as people get to organize and plan things together, maybe something like that could happen. But ultimately, you have to ask yourself, when they knock on my door at 4 a.m, or when they pull me over for not having a tail light and they find it, what am I going to do right then and there? And the vast majority of people are going to give it up, because who's going to shoot a cop on the side of the road over an AR-15 magazine? Are you going to?
The majority will, like you said, but there's going to be those people, man, that just dying that way beats cancer. I can tell you that much.
Little amounts of people that are going to push back in a violent way will find out that Antifa and Black Lives Matter are burning down Chicago because they're letting them. If the police department and any local police department in any city could shut these people down by themselves, without the National Guard, without federal funding or federal troops and all that other kind of crap, your local police department can put down just about any riot that's going to pop up in your neighborhood with no problem at all. They're designed to do that, plus they have the power of killing you. So will you stand there alone? That's what you got to ask yourself. I'm not saying whether you're right or wrong or different, but that's the reality of it. Is if something passes, they're not going to come with tanks driving down the road with megaphones. Give up your guns. They're going to wait and catch you later.
It'll be attacked. It'll be attacked on charge. It'll be the same as they do with felons now. They don't go raid felon. Oh, we know that so and so here at this address is a felon, so we're going to go do a house check on him. And like maybe he's been out of prison for 10 years even, but hey, you know what? We know so-and-so here is a felon. He's been out of prison for 10 years. So we're going to go do a house check, see if he's got any guns. They don't do that. What do? They wait till they pull him over or something else is going on and he's got one on him. Then they stick him with that charge.
And that's just going to be very few doing even that. What it is everybody's going to be burying the shit. It's out of sight, out of mind. You're not taking it to the range. You're not showing your kids how to work them unless you got a lot of property. Yep. So that stuff is going to be sitting, rusting up, and going to shit, or unless you pack it up nice and it's all great. But then as that time goes on, that kid's going to school, and if you don't teach them right, they're going to say, hey, this shit's bad. Dad died. We're turning this shit in because we don't want anything to do with it because he was a bad guy because of this.
Well, at that point,
it doesn't even have to be that somebody is getting picked up. They'll throw it on if they come in and they see something sitting out, sure. But after, they don't even have to go that route, and it'll disappear by training the kids not to like firearms, and also you're not using them. You're not taking them out. There's not that family time. You're not purchasing anything new. You know, I mean,
Yeah, out of sight, out of mind, and eventually, there's no way to even bring up that fight at some point. It's so far removed at some point that it would be like trying. I don't even know what it would be like trying to
going to England and asking, hey, can I have an AR-15? I bet you they would.
Look, real quick. Ultimately, when it comes down to are we going to go out in the streets and start killing politicians and police officers, we've got 246 years of practice and then thousands of years of other practice. We didn't get to 2020 and all the civilization and all the technology and all the medical advances and all the scientific advances to every single time somebody does something we don't like, we go out and kill them. Especially in the United States, we've got a constitution, we've got a vote, we've got legislation, and the longer my vote doesn't matter. I was listening to you guys earlier about the voting thing. My vote doesn't matter. All the different stuff that you guys said, as long as we keep treating our system like it's a joke and it's broken and it can never be fixed, then we have to have the conversations about killing people who break our system. When the system gets violated, you use the system to correct it. That's the most important thing we do. If your first idea is they want to ban something, so let's get a bunch of guys together and go shoot up the Capitol building, you're an idiot. Because we've got to vote. We're civilized human beings. We don't need to kill each other anymore.
On the opposite side, not opposite, but a lot of people would say, I have voted, I've done this, doesn't matter. In my area, there's more one way than the other. I still feel I'm a decent person. I haven't committed any crimes. It was legal when I bought it, whatever the case may be, and they're just not going to deal with it. But at the same time, they're not going to go hunt people down. They're just going to want to be left alone. And then if it comes down to the point where their back's against the wall, they're either going to submit or they're going to bite back. So, I mean, that's the other side.
I would never quote.
Ain't going to do nothing.
Well, it does to them. In their mind, either they complied or they died honorably. Depends how you look at things. I mean, will it change the system? No. But did you bow down? Did you kiss the ring? No.
Well, see,
that's all on an individual level, and people are wired differently. Most cases are not going to do it, but in some cases, taking my rights would be like saying you're going to take my child to sleep with him. Like, good luck. I'm going to have to be dead for it.
I mean, you're right. It comes down to, are you willing to die to keep your AR-15?
Right, and making that prematurely, that's foolish. Nobody can say what's right for you or an individual, but some people are just going to be wired that way. That's just, some people just don't bow down. They'll play the game, but they're not just going to take it.
Yeah, you got a good
build off of what
chat. No gun control was mentioned in the debates.
Not that I'm aware of. And I mean, that's something that we need to look at because, so many more people came on board as firearm owners, whether they're right, left, centrist, whatever, they came on board. And so for us to go through a presidential cycle with no mention of gun control is a little bit wacky to me. And it's like the only reason that is there has to be some risk factor or scare factor with them involved in that, and that's why it was not done, right? And so that's a positive. We need to look at that. But again, if we get a Biden presidency and a Democrat Senate and House, they'll do like healthcare. They'll just ram whatever down our throats anyway, and then maybe assuming that they're not able to get the court packed, maybe we might have some recourse through the Supreme Court on that. But I mean, look at so far what we've had with the healthcare thing in Supreme Court. It hasn't been, it hasn't really affected the whole healthcare, the decisions that the Supreme Court has made. So who's to say that it would make a difference even with that. The Supreme Court's one of them last ditch efforts. It's nice to have that if we've got that at our disposal, but ultimately, if we can't stop it in its tracks, stop it before it ever hits the House floor for a vote or the Senate floor for a vote or whatever, then we've got an issue.
To build on that and what David said, I hate it. It really tears me up to do this, but even Clinton, I believe it was his first address to the Democrats or whatever before his first term, he was saying that the worst things of America can still be fixed by all the good things of America. So using the system the way it's supposed to and putting forth the effort and actually putting effort in, not being that lazy guy that just says, oh, I'm just going to go and hit the D and hit the R. And, look at those people that are around you right now. You got a couple days, and you probably haven't. I know 90% of people don't look at their school boards and their county clerks and all that other nonsense. Take a few minutes, instead of watching memes on Instagram, take a few minutes.
I got a question for the panel, if it's all right with you, Rick.
Yeah.
I've been thinking about it a lot more since Ghost put out his video about the candidates and their position on guns. Is the failure ours? Because we understand politicians are politicians. They're headline readers. They don't know the depths of anything, especially the bills they pass. And when it comes down to gun control specifically, since we are a 2A chat, why are we surprised that background checks are not considered an infringement on your rights? Why are we considered like the 10-round magazine, carry in federal buildings, all the different kind of gun laws that are there and that John Q. Public and Jane Q. Public think are normal and fine because, of course we don't want criminals to have guns. Do we need to do a better job at educating everybody, especially our politicians, that a magazine ban is a violation of the Second Amendment, that calling a bump stock a machine gun is a violation of the Second Amendment, the red flag, all these things that they talk about for public safety and common sense? I think some of them that are anti-gun know that they're anti-gun, but I think the vast majority of them are just like, well, of course, I don't want bad people to get guns. That makes sense to me. You still got your gun, so what? You have to write down your name on a piece of paper before we sell it to you. Don't you want bad guys to not get guns? How can we get more people to understand the intricacies of how much of a violation of the Second Amendment that is?
Teach it in school.
We definitely need them to understand. I mean, you can't really, pass if you don't understand the rules. How are you going to enforce them in a sense or things like that? But personally, I think it, we've got it, now, especially generations of, compromise, whatever. The document's clear. There shouldn't be much discretion to it. I don't know where we got railroaded in a day. I mean, there's going to be risk in life. If you want to protect yourself from risk, hey, get a gun, learn how to use it. You'll be on the same level as everybody else. I don't know. A lot of this shouldn't even be. But that's, a discussion. Well, we're too far removed or whatever, but it's all this compromise bullshit that's got us here. Everybody wants to work something out. We'll give a little, get a little.
Oh.
Well, we've gotten a little screwed forever. So
I
hope everybody's happy.
I agree with that a little bit, but when you said compromise, let me point something out. Compromise means you give a little, I give a little. And true compromise, I don't have a problem with true compromise. The issue that has been going on for so long, we talk about the NRA, for example, and how for years the NRA is compromised. The only time really the NRA compromised, and it wasn't really the NRA, was in 1934 because they were going after like handguns and everything. And even then, like I said, it wasn't technically the NRA at that point. But we don't compromise. That's the problem. And I say we as pro Second Amendment, firearm owners, we don't compromise a lot of times. What we do is we give up. We don't get nothing in return. A compromise would be, okay, if you want national reciprocity, then you need to, we need to take one state's course and make that a standard for the entire country. Which state, in other words, which state has the most state reciprocity? And I don't know the answer to that. Rick may, because I think he's got like 20 different licenses. But so they say that would be a compromise. Going, okay, if you want that, then okay, in order to get that, yes, let's go with. I'm just going to pick a state. Idaho's concealed carry. Okay, so Idaho's concealed carry is going to be the national standard. Let's do that. That would be a compromise. But that's not the way that compromise works. They always get, meaning anti-gun, anti-Second Amendment, and we always give up, and it's not a compromise when it's like that.
It's a surrender.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a buzzword for them. They know that it's not compromise, but they portray it that way because they're saying, oh, just compromise on this little thing. It's not like we want them all. We just want this one little thing. And that doesn't seem unreasonable. And then their base follows along with it. And you got the people that are on the fence that like, oh, that doesn't sound bad. And then you got the people that are just pro-gun that are like, oh, that's, I don't care about that gun or this gun or, national reciprocity or anything like that. That's no big deal. And they keep winning that way.
Where else is it okay to
conversation starts?
The anti-gunners compromise. Their compromise is, well, we're not. You still got something left.
Yeah, all right. Where else is it okay to compromise as far as an instruction manual, like the Bill of Rights? Do we compromise when we read our instruction manual for our gun, or piece of CNC machinery, or anything? I mean, I don't. This whole thing is stupid. There shouldn't be the whole compromise.
No, before you can even have this conversation about compromise, surrender, which is what is actually happening, you have to have everybody on the same page. They have to know what the Second Amendment actually is. Because you have guys saying, oh, I'm pro Second Amendment. They don't have one idea of what it actually means and what it pertains to. It's not just firearms, it's knives, it's sticks, it's my little pinky finger or thumb if you're, Clint Eastwood. But you have to get on the same page, which isn't going to happen unless you start teaching people and talking about the actual Second Amendment, not this, oh, I'm pro-gun. What does that mean? That statement doesn't mean anything to me. Oh, I'm pro-gun. That's nothing.
And it goes back to education.
Yeah, because if you don't know what the Second Amendment actually means, when they say, "Oh, well, it makes everybody safer to do background checks," right? But that has nothing to do with being safer. It doesn't have anything to do with. Good.
So when you bring up an excellent thing, and so when we're talking about education, we're talking about making people aware and whatever. How many people, when they're having a conversation with somebody that's maybe on the fence, maybe an anti-gunner or whatever, and they say, oh, well, you shouldn't have that. You say, well, Second Amendment, not about needs. It says shall not be infringed, blah, blah, blah. I wonder how many of those people that we're talking to, and also how many of us doing the talking, are aware of or bring up the fact that the Constitution is not set in frickin' stone. The founders were brilliant, and they give us ways that we can change the Constitution if we need to change the Constitution. This is something that I have a problem with, is that the whole idea of calling a constitutional convention or something like that is taboo. Like, nobody on either side ever talks about it. And it's because I think the far right is dangerous of what may happen, and the far left is dangerous of what may happen. But there's been several times, especially in the past decade or two, when you're talking about the makeup of our state legislatures and everything else, there has been some prime times that a constitutional convention, I think, would have been great, because we could have taken care of things like term limits. We could have done a lot of different things, I believe, and not really had to worry about, because of the way that it's set up, in which you can change the Constitution, requires a super majority. We'll just say it requires a lot of agreement. So getting some fringe element crazy stuff into the Constitution, at least at certain times throughout the last decade or two, and probably let's say hopefully there's times like that in the years or decades to come. I think that we failed by not addressing things. We want to address things as far as through our government, through legislation and all this other stuff, when why are we not using the mechanisms that the founders gave us to go to that issue? Like, if the anti-gunners don't want guns, why aren't they calling for a constitutional convention to then try to do away with the Second Amendment? And why is because that seems ultimately way far out there and way crazy, but it hasn't been crazy in the past to do other things. You feel me? So why is it taboo when we talk about that?
One of the places that we lose, and I think I agree with Clover, it's been talked about in the abortion circles, I guess, if you want to put it that way. Put it on a ballot. If you think the vast majority of the country thinks abortion on demand is right, put it on the ballot. Let's find out. And neither side wants to do that, because what Clover said, they're both scared to lose. The pro-life people are afraid that maybe there are a bunch of baby murderers out there, and then the baby murderers are like, well, maybe we're the only ones out there. But going back to societal issue, the language is what we've accepted. Common sense, when they say common sense gun laws or common sense safety regulations, is I think what the term they're using now. How do you argue with that? How do you sit there as a rational human being with a heart and a love for your country and your fellow citizens and not want to use common sense safety regulations? That's how they passed the red flag law all over the country. Now, there's certain countries or states like California that were just dying for it. Didn't matter. Here in Maryland, they pushed the we're going to keep felons from having guns. We're going to keep murderers from getting and they pushed the first half a paragraph of what a red flag law really is. And everybody was like, yeah, that makes sense. Going back to the background checks. What was their excuse for a background checks? The first thing they're going to say is, Rick, you don't want to keep bad people from getting guns? What's wrong with you? And then you're like, well, you're right. I mean, how else are we going to keep bad people from getting guns if you don't have to do a background check? That means a baddie can just walk into a store. The language is what they've been using to beat us up with, going back to civil unrest and a woman's choice and all these other kinds of things that they've changed the wording to make it sound different. And it's hard for John Q. Public to fight against common sense safety.
You're right. You're right. And plus, they've made stupid laws now that, I mean, you look at what you said there. If we had no gun control, anybody can walk in the store and buy a gun. Right? Now, you would think, well, what's the problem with that? But then you've got the hardened criminal, unfortunately, should be in jail, but because of the laws and everything else, he's out on the street on probation. Right? If you're doing so he can walk in the store and buy a gun.
Right.
Well,
in other words, if he's a violent criminal,
if you want to take it to that extreme, Rick.
Jail should be, it's meant to be to rehabilitate him. If you can't trust that person, don't let him out. That's the way I look at it.
And if you want to take it to that extreme, let's just say some bad people did get guns. Well, in this, imaginary world or whatever the case is, if it was back to the way it is, people would also have the right to defend themselves. So when this crook was giving the lady a trouble next door, and then the guys down the hall seen what was going on and came back, and it was an issue, and the guy ended up shot, the problem would be solved. It's almost like legalizing the drug issue, and people get soft on that. But, if you look around and see your friends and they're all dying off and your life's going down the drains and the only thing you want to do is get high and piss away your life, then so be it. Honestly, why should I pay to try to convince you otherwise or fix you? I don't want you, to be paying all these shots for every time you get high, or they have an injection place for you to go to and maybe rob people from there. You get some bad stuff, you call, you get a free shot of Narcan. And I don't feel like paying for that in my tax dollar. If that's, maybe put an exemption one time. We come save you once. If you didn't learn, oh damn well, you can't.
That makes sense to me too. The Narcan thing is another thing. They want to put these shooting galleries, they even call them shooting galleries, in all these different cities so people can do that, so they can go get high, and if they fall out, there's a nurse there to hit them with some Narcan. Well, you're paying for that. The thing is, how do it's hard to do when you're not that person, but you guys are all not headline readers. You guys are all last paragraph readers, middle paragraph readers, 2 article readers, 3 or 4 article readers. Most people are headline readers. And when you put the headline out there that we're going to stop 35% of the heroin overdoses by putting this building here, John Q. Public, regular, everyday, normal citizen that doesn't know what Narcan even means, they just know that less people are going to die. They're going to be like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. Those are the people that we have to reach, and we have to think like those people, which I said is hard. It's hard to think like an idiot sometimes, but sometimes you have to understand why these people do these things.
Oh, we could write a bill and say we're going to stop 90% of overdoses within 2 years, and then get everybody to sign it. And then what that actually does is legalizes it, and all the junkies die off within 2 years. And then everybody looks at them and says, oh shit, I'm not going to do that. And then it's not an issue anymore.
Yeah.
So we take all the meth heads, all Black Lives Matter, and all Antifa, and pop them in California. To be with me, because I don't want to lose California. But we get all the mad sexies and Calaverises out and put them up in our house for about a year. And within a year, they'll all kill themselves or starve to death. Then all we got to do is take a bulldozer and push them into the ocean, and we've got California back. It's like a 2-year process.
Gain some ground too.
Yeah. Oh, well, we're getting out into this world that ain't never going
And
to
you also save the sharks out there. You feed them.
Yeah.
That'd be good.
Anyway, have you guys seen the time? I ain't even done my quiz yet. Was it 10 to 5?
For shame, Rick. For shame. You don't care about your viewers. I'm unsubscribing, man.
Yeah.
Gosh.
Yeah. Okay. Now the thing is, my quiz for last week, I wanted to know what gun or what handgun, firearm did Walker, Texas Ranger TV show, what gun did he carry? And as of 2018, what gun did the Texas Rangers adopt as their official service firearm? That was the question. I only got one entry. So that one person has won. And so that one person is in this room with us right now. And that's Guns and Barbecue is the winner of that quiz.
All right. How many people do we have watching right now, Rick?
Well, hell, I don't know. Let me have a look.
16. All right. I'm thinking of a number between 1 and 16.
Do what?
He said he was thinking, and I think he doesn't realize he muted himself, or maybe the kids were in the background, but he was going to pick.
Yeah, I didn't mean to mute myself. I didn't realize it. I'm thinking of a number between 1 and 16. I'll leave it in the side chat here. Then whoever puts it in the chat on YouTube first can have the prize.
Oh, so guess what number you're thinking?
Yeah.
And that's a pretty cool deal because Guns and Barbecue is a 100% sticker and patch addict. This guy needs help. Send him some money so he can get some more patches.
And he's willing to give away his prize here, huh? Wow.
Kingpin ain't joking. I got a problem.
Okay, so we know. So everybody in the chat, they got to think what number you're thinking of, right?
Yep. Whoever comments it first wins. I put it over in the side chat so you can see it.
Yeah, I got it.
It's between 1 and 16.
Nobody's got it yet. But anyway, this week's quiz, keep a look in the chat because every time I click on open up my thing with my question on it, my chat disappears. So
I'll watch the chat for the number.
okay. All right. Now for this week's chat, and actually it's not a bad little package. It's a couple of patches and stuff. I don't know. We might have to start I might have to start doing a quiz maybe every other week because with no SHOT Show, there's going to be less swag for people to send to me to use. That's where most of it comes from. So I don't know. I got to think about that. Anyway,
I'll send you some this week, there, Rick.
Oh, I mean, I'm doing okay right now, but I was just thinking. I don't know. With no SHOT Show, the normal people that send me stuff aren't going to have it to send because they ain't no SHOT Show. Anyway, this question this week's is easy. It's easy. I tried to give you guys, since I only had one entry last week, I decided to go easy on you. Another TV show, Mannix. Some of you young guys won't even remember it. MANNIX was the name of the show. I want to know what his firearm was. That's it. So Mannix. I think it was, what did it run from? 68 to 75 or something like that? I want to know what his what he carried and used.
Do you not watch modern TV? Anything from the new generation with color?
Yeah, but
none of them carry guns.
Okay. I'm just checking.
Guns. They're all anti-gun.
Hey, Hogan's Heroes was in color, and that's old school.
Yeah.
Yeah. So come on, guys. Some number between 1 and 16.
I'd like to mention something too, Rick, once you're ready.
Yeah, go for it.
Well, I do have the Patriot 1776 project. I know it's like pulling teeth. I think I offended people by telling them what I thought a hero was. But you can still do your submissions. The first drawing is November 4th. There are 13 prizes, Second Amendment Foundation memberships, 2 custom holsters, and a bunch of other stuff. And as of right now, I have 2 entries with the videos. And yeah, so if you know me, I give away way more than I ever say. And the second drawing is going to be January 20th. But if it keeps going like this, I might just ask for something different. So, but yeah, you can check it out. Just make a video about a real hero, anybody in American history, whoever it is. You don't have to know them. It doesn't have to be somebody that's alive. You can go to the website, Medal of Honor, and there's hundreds of people on there. There's all sorts of people. Just make a video, call them out in the title, and you can check that last video I did on it or whatever. But I just want to make a collection because just like we say with words, how David brought up about words not being used correctly, heroes thrown around on everything. I mean, they gave everybody money on that last bill that was a heroes bill, and the words are used incorrectly. So I'm just looking for that to get a kind of a collection together so people can actually
Question,
check them out.
Yes. Could they do audio? Because maybe some people are concerned about video.
Well-
Seems like a lot of people don't mind speaking
Well,
in
there's-
chats, but they're not getting on a camera.
There's actually two ways of doing it. All right. You can make a video, and I don't care if you're, me, I'm never on video. You can shine it at the wall or your cat. I don't care. As long as you're talking about it and so whatever, it's easy to do that. That is one way of entry. If you do a video, you get 3 entries. If you do, go to the original video and in the comments aren't really limited. I mean, you can put a whole bunch of stuff in there. If you put the name of the person and then below that, write out a description of what made them a hero, a real hero, not a fake sports person, whatever. And you put that's 1 entry. So, I mean, if you go over there and you write, I do have one that somebody submitted just as that. And if you want to throw a link in there as well, to kind of some more information, but I want to just, in that comment to write it out a little bit. So if you don't like doing videos, you can do it that way. So I do have 13 prize packages, and there's a bunch of the, whatever. And depending on if I get a lot of people doing it, then I'll do more. But otherwise, whoever's in there, I'll probably throw more stuff because I never keep it the way I say I'm going to keep it. I always overdo everything.
All right. King
Please
wants to
check it
talk.
out. Appreciate it.
We have a winner in the chat of the Rick's Life prize pack donated by the winner earlier, Guns and Barbecue, and it is the one and only Mystic Guns.
That's right. Mystic Guns is the winner. So send me your mailing address,
Good job, man.
Mystic Guns, and I will get the package to you.
By the way, Rick, I don't think you actually mentioned what the answer was for last week's question.
No, I didn't. No, the answer was a Taurus P192, and it was used as a stand-in for a Beretta 92 on the show. And the Rangers today adopted the Sig Sauer P320.
Yep.
That's the answer. So there we go. So I said Guns and Barbecue won the package, but he donated it back, and Mystic Guns is the winner in the chat. So I just need your mailing address. Email me at rickslife@gmail.com with your mailing address, and I will mail you the package.
Little fun fact, Mystic Guns was my 100th subscriber.
Oh, yeah. There you go. You sure you didn't email her the answer as being the 100th subscriber?
100%. I wouldn't bother. She has to deal with Snob. Last thing she wants to do is see an email from me.
Yeah. All right. So,
That was awesome.
so there we go. Let's wind this up because my cats are circling. They're getting hungry. And a couple of things, because I won't see you before the next time I'm on is the 4th. So make sure you go out there and vote. Every vote counts, whether your state is going to go Democrat anyway. Get out there and vote. Vote for what you believe in. So, I mean, as I said, what was it? The last I was in Rhode Island, and Rhode Island's a Democrat state through and through. But I remember that the percentage of Republicans, it went up. I can't remember. I think it used to be like 17% voted for the Republican candidate on average. But when in 2016, when Trump won, even though the Electoral College went to Hillary, the Republicans had a 37% of the state. So it does make a difference. Eventually, you never know. It might take years, but it could flip eventually. But you never know. So your vote does count, believe it or not. But And don't forget, the clocks go back tonight. If I remember, am I correct on that one? I believe it is this tonight.
Yeah.
Or 2 a.m. in the morning. The clocks go back an hour.
Yep, that is tonight.
Yeah. So you get an extra hour of sleep. You want to look at it that way? So that's it. So before we close out, you got any shout outs or anything, New York Outcast?
No, just thanks for having me. It's been a good conversation today. So everybody, be safe. If you got kids out there, go do your thing, get off your butt, take them out, be safe about it. It is Halloween, so try to have a little bit of fun.
All right. Patriot in the Dark. You don't want to go
thanks for
over
having
that
me.
prize again, do you?
No. If you guys want to check it out, it's on my channel. It's like I haven't been making videos. My kid's been home for intercession, so she'll go back. Her birthday was yesterday, and I will say I bought her very first pistol, and it was a Crossman American Classic pump action pellet gun. So she loved it, and I've been playing with it since she's at her mom's. But don't let her know that. But yeah, just make sure that you do something with the kids, teach them something. Give them a book. They make them out of paper and ink. So,
I don't know if it's Halloween tonight. I don't know if that's allowed this year in coronavirus 2020.
And if you guys do videos, make a video of handing out some candy to kids. If you have wrist rockets, you can always shoot them so that they're fling it out to the road so they don't have to come up near you. I'd like to hear about that.
Yeah, or do what I do. Switch all my lights off. Pretend I'm not home. All right, Scented Barbecue. You got anything? You're muted. No? You got any? What did he say? No? Okay.
I didn't hear who you said.
I said, you got any shout outs or anything?
Just go check out everybody that's on the panel right now. They're all putting out great videos and great content. Patriot's got his giveaway that he's doing. I've been doing the Instagram thing for a few weeks now, so if anybody wants to go check me out on there, it's Guns and BBQ official IG. And thanks for having me, Rick.
No problem. Clovertech, you got anything?
No, man, not really. Go vote.
Tonight.
Local elections, things on that definitely depend on it. So make sure you're doing that. And thanks for the chat, Rick.
Are you doing your reading tonight?
Oh yeah,
Halloween.
we got 9 Eastern tonight. It'll the Halloween special. It'll be a premiere. So if you want to jump into the chat for the premiere at 9 Eastern, come on over for that. Have a little fun on Halloween.
All right. Kingpin.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Excellent chat. Every single time I open my mic, my phone goes off. Anyway, I'm gonna put a link out in the chat to a pretty cool little channel. His name's Josh Brandenburg. He's a special needs kid from Wisconsin. He does 5-minute long videos about him talking, and they're fun videos. They're cool, but go check him out. Give him a thumbs up. Maybe leave a comment or give him a subscribe. Don't pass around the link very much unless you really, really trust the person that you're going to send it to. Because I'd be really upset if ignorant people got on and started messing with this kid. But I think since there's 19 people in here, most of the people who hang out on Rick's chat are top of the line people. So go ahead and check him out. Maybe, like I said, give him a thumbs up. And he makes good videos. He's got a real inspirational message, and he's not a victim. So go check him out.
All right. All right. Oh, real quick before I say goodnight to everybody, did you hear that Illinois gave the Kenosha kid to Wisconsin? They did extradite him. So he's sitting in the Wisconsin jail now in Kenosha, whatever county the county jail, whatever county that town's in. So I just thought I'd mention that. Anyway, thank you everybody for being here. I said go vote, and thanks for spending your Saturday afternoon with me. I will see you all on Wednesday at 7 p.m. for Shooting with Disabilities. So have a good one, everybody.
Bye, Sabrina.
All right.